The problem is when that weight starts coming on around the middle, now we're upping our risk for the metabolic syndrome and the cardiometabolic diseases, and the cholesterol even starts to go up. Thyroid can be impacted. All of these things happen, which ultimately can impact blood sugar control.
Welcome to the Good Clean Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Ginger Hultin. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist and an oncology expert. In the last episode, we talked with Angela Manderfeld. Angela is a registered dietitian and a diabetes nutrition expert. She is board certified in advanced diabetes management. If you missed it, I highly recommend taking a listen. We talked about weight loss drugs, weight loss injectables, continuous glucose monitors, and other health tech as it relates to diabetes. Today, we're talking with Angela about the role estrogen plays in insulin resistance when it comes to perimenopause and menopause. Angela has created a curriculum for women 40 plus to be aware of these changes and to better prevent and manage diabetes along the way. I was thinking a lot about weight loss drugs and injectables this week and some of the confusion about how they have come onto the market. One of my dear clients a couple years ago, she came to me and she said, I want to know what you think about weight loss injectables because I'm strongly considering it. Her doctor also recommended it. And I said, let's just look into this together. So I opened up the website and right on top, it said, must be used in conjunction with dietary changes and exercise. And I said, did anyone tell you that? Did you know? And she said, no, I just thought that it just magically helped you lose weight. She told me that her hairdresser said, well, it's so great. You just lose weight and you can eat candy all day. And I said, that is not the right approach. What I'd like to do is to use this as a tool to help you build healthy habits that you wanted anyhow. Let's talk about eating in a way that makes your body feel good. And let's talk about exercise. And that's how you can use these medications to be really life-changing and empowering. I'm excited to learn more from you about the program that you developed to work with women who are over the age of 40 to help them navigate insulin resistance changes when they're navigating hormone changes. So I first wanted to define insulin resistance. It's not something that everyone is always familiar with.
There's a lot of different things you can do. We can test a fasting insulin. We can look at what your glucose level is. We can do an oral glucose tolerance test. Obviously, the A1C is helpful. But one of the things that people start to notice is they start gaining weight around the middle. So that is super important when it comes to perimenopause and menopause, is that's what starts happening. And that's where people are like, hey, what's going on here? I'm doing what I've always done, and I'm starting to notice this weight gain. So what's happening inside the body is, the way I describe it to my clients is we've got this cell that's locked up their doors, and we eat our food, carbohydrates, they break down into sugar, our body releases insulin. And the insulin is supposed to get the sugar into the cells, but the cells are being super resistant. And so the body's having to make a little extra insulin, pancreas is making more insulin. And what the pancreas is doing when it makes insulin, it's making a fat storing hormone. The more insulin we have to make for things, the more fat we're going to be storing. So the best thing we can do is to try to figure out a way to improve the insulin resistance. And why that becomes a challenge, particularly for women, is that as estrogen starts to decrease, we become more insulin resistant. And this isn't something that you really know. I'm 46 and I just started getting a clue a few years ago that I might be in perimenopause. Everybody is, but you're like, I don't know. Nobody talks about it. You don't have the talk about, well, you're getting ready for perimenopause or menopause. I mean, yeah, you've heard, people get hot flashes or they don't sleep well. But why is this happening? And what do you do about it? And can lifestyle make a difference? So that's what kind of got me into researching this a little bit more. Is, I'm in the middle of it. And I thought, gosh, this is my jam.
I've been talking about perimenopause and menopause a lot more too. I work with a lot of women in that age range, but then also I work with a lot of women who are put into menopause all of a sudden because they had some sort of usually cancer related surgery. So I see it for people of all age. And I also see men slipping into like menopause type symptoms when they are on certain cancer treatment, hormone changing treatments. So, from hot flashes to weight gain to insulin resistance. And another thing that comes along that I talk a lot about is bone density changes. So your estrogen is changing. It affects a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And I see this direct tie to cardiovascular and diabetes issues. It affects so many people.
Absolutely. We can't start early enough. 30s is the time to start talking about this. People need to have a better clue in advance of what is going on and what should I be expecting and what things can I get in place with my lifestyle to help me manage this a little bit better when I am in the middle of it.
What we've got is estrogen changes, weight gain or weight body changes. We've got increased heart disease risk, and then possibly increased blood sugar issues, insulin resistance, diabetes risk, that we actually need to be thinking about this in your 30s on how to prevent blood sugar issues, diabetes, and chronic disease in your 40s, 50s, and beyond.
When I think back to my 30s, they were wild, crazy. Like, I don't remember some of them because you're not getting a lot of sleep. If you've got kids, you're trying to work, trying to do everything in this stress that people are dealing with on a regular basis. That right there can cause weight gain. And just because you have so many things that you're responsible for and have to think about on a daily basis. So if we can start in the 30s, like thinking about this a little bit more, it really does help that transition.
I agree. I'm 42, and I would say 30s and 40s is such a busy time of life when there is a lot going on. And it's also a time where we need to be thinking about taking care of our health long term. So you mentioned the lifestyle changes that we need to be focusing on. What are they? Where do you start?
Honestly, I think the first one is exercise, because exercise does so much in terms of helping with hormone regulation, helping to manage and kind of release some of that stress and keeping us in a strong place so that we can function and do what we need to do. Now, as I say that, when we're not getting enough sleep because of whatever reason, that makes it hard to exercise, because when we haven't slept well, then we're tired. And the idea of going to a gym or getting on a treadmill or taking a walk is very challenging. So, exercise, I think, and sleep are kind of the two main things in the 30s that we want to kind of try to see if we could just really root in and start to grow and really get that down. And then next up, obviously, nutrition. Like it really is important because, if we're just trying to run off of sugary drinks all day, all we're doing is zapping our energy, throwing our blood sugar out of balance, and causing our body to undergo more stress. So that's probably where I would start with people who are in their 30s.
Dietitians practice integratively. It's a huge focus of mine, and exercise has to be intact. And so does sleep. I tell my clients, you can eat the perfect, in quotes, diet, but if you're not sleeping or you're really, really stressed, you're not going to get where you need to go. And then, of course, diet, eating on a regular basis and focusing on things you mentioned, fiber, protein. It just also helps you feel better and more prepared to handle all that's coming your way.
It doesn't have to be the perfect dinner. Like, it doesn't have to have like garnishments and take you 3 hours to prepare. Like, I'm the queen of sheet pan meals, man. I'm throwing vegetables on, you put the meat on, you put different seasonings, put it in. And this is what we're having tonight because it took me 5 minutes to prepare it and about 25-30 minutes to cook it. And it's done. And it was all less dishes. It's all on one thing. So I think just helping people figure out like some easy wins to feel successful so that we've got the nutrition piece down as well as the exercise. That's why I tell people 10 minutes after you eat. You don't have to go do a 60-minute class at the gym. I mean, that's great if you can. You got to start somewhere. It could even be like yoga before bed, just so that you get your body prepared in a nice place, you decrease stress, and then maybe you're sleeping a little bit better. So, we have to meet each person where they're at, but I tell people, get a B, maybe even a B minus. You don't have to be getting A pluses every day. we can get a B in life and be good. Even if you're getting a C plus, you're probably still doing pretty darn good.
And I love your message, like, get a B. It's going to be okay, especially during a busy season of life. I recently interviewed Kate Scarlatta, IBS expert. A really fun conversation. She was talking about how IBS impacts more women than men. And I'm wondering about the connection between blood sugar management, like diabetes, and gut health. How does that affect women?
For women, what sets them up for pre-diabetes, especially in the 40s and 50s, really is the estrogen drop. And if they're not on the ball thinking, oh, here I am, perimenopause, menopause, and they're not bumping up their protein, increasing their fiber, really being snobby about the carbohydrates that they're choosing, making sure they only get the best ones. If we're not thinking about those shifts, it can catch up with us pretty quickly. And that weight starts coming on around the middle. And it's not like, oh, now we don't look good in a swimsuit. The problem is when that weight starts coming on around the middle, now we're upping our risk for the metabolic syndrome and the cardiometabolic diseases. And the cholesterol even starts to go up. Thyroid can be impacted. All of these things happen, which ultimately can impact blood sugar control. So if we're not aware that this is even a thing and taking action prior, we're going to be in the midst of it all. And then we're going to try to be backpedaling, reversing out of it, which, a lot of people with diabetes, that's the same thing that we're trying to do is reverse it. And even though there's people out there that are like, oh, you can't reverse diabetes. Yes, you freaking can. Maybe you don't get all the way back to the destination of no diabetes, blood sugar, absolutely perfect, but you can absolutely reverse it because diabetes is a progressive disease. It's always heading closer to diabetes, closer to higher blood sugar. And there's so much that we have control of, and there's so much that we can do to reverse it. So I feel very strongly about that. Yes, there's definitions of putting diabetes into remission, but it's like, you know what? Forget those definitions. Let's take action and do what we can to get this thing in reverse. And so for us women, 40s, 50s, 60s, who are dealing with menopause, now is the time. Like, let's prevent this. Let's stop this before it even starts. And that's why I think both of us want to get that message out there that, hey, this is a thing. This is what's happening and this is what we can do about it. And it's not miserable, honestly. It's like you're going to feel better and be healthier for it.
Right. And that message is so empowering and like feeling helpless or feeling like it's really scary. You and I both talk about this topic in different ways. So I just developed a program for perimenopause and menopause that specifically focuses on the inflammatory process of it and how to calm that. But you have a program that's really cool for women 40 plus. What does that entail?
We meet every week for 45 minutes. There's never more than 12 of us at a time. And we go over different topics. We set our plans for the week, like what we're going to focus on, what's our priority this week. Everybody has a different plan and a different priority for the week. So it is individualized. But there's usually a message that I'm talking about. So some sort of education piece to it. And then I give people little 5-minute videos like sleep in perimenopause and menopause, or how does magnesium help in menopause, or the fiber formula. So I'm just trying to help support people and give them the education as they need it when they need it. It's fun to get these women together, and it's fun that they have a connection. They're like, oh yeah, I'm dealing with that too. And I think it really helps to have that accountability and support as you're learning about this new stage of life, this second puberty, as they call it, because there's just not a lot out there.
Also, you mentioned that this isn't like, oh, I gained weight or I gained weight around the middle, and so I don't like how I look. It's so far beyond that. So you bring in this piece of mindfulness, and you also are really focused on the health and empowering people. And it just seems like such a more positive way to look at it.
Every now and then people will say, Angela, I need to lose weight. It's for my health. But when you talk about it to people, they're just like, oh, none of my clothes fit anymore. Like, I hate how I look in the mirror. These are the things that people are saying to us. I'm trying, I'm working out at the gym and nothing is working. And so they don't have the best view of their body. Part of my program is called Strong Body, Strong Mind. So I want to help people create that strong body that they're looking for. Not like, oh, I want to be perfect in a swimsuit. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your goal, more power to you. But it really is health-based. And the driving function of this class is to really help us get an understanding of how our bodies work. And I think it's a missing piece in education that we understand how food impacts us, how exercise and activity impacts us, what foods are going to help build us up and help us flourish, and what foods are going to draw us down and get us out of balance, and trying to figure out how to navigate that. And I think that's really what we need. And that's what's important at this stage of life.
And having a dietitian expert to really help guide that conversation is a piece a lot of people are missing. But you also need to have your medical team. Who is on that team if you're a woman in your 40s or 50s?
Yeah, I think there could be a lot of people on that team depending on what you're dealing with at the moment, because a lot of women will deal with anxiety and depression related to those hormonal changes. So they may need support from a dietitian for the gut-brain connection, but also maybe from a therapist to talk through some of the struggles and just the weight of the world that's on their shoulders on a day-to-day basis. And as we enter into perimenopause, we're not as resilient as we were maybe in our 30s when it comes to managing stress. So having a therapist on the team to help us improve or develop those tools. Obviously, we need somebody guiding our general medical care, whether that's a medical doctor, nurse practitioner, PA, naturopath, whatever it is that you choose, but somebody just to help manage the medical piece as far as doing the blood tests, checking hormone levels, that kind of stuff. And then exercise. If you don't know how to exercise, maybe you need to get a trainer. Maybe you need to work with somebody one-on-one for a little while just to kind of see what that's about. Because again, we went through high school, we went through college. We'd like to think that we're fairly well educated, but when it comes to knowing exactly what to eat, I don't know that anybody knows exactly what's going to be perfect, because you read studies that you should be doing this, you should be doing this. So I think we really have to just pause, look at our own body, look at our own needs, look at our own challenges, and figure out, with the help of our medical doctor, our exercise physiologist, our registered dietitian, what is going to work for me. Okay, not what works for the lady across the street, what works for me. That's the difference.
What is your approach to getting people to understand that and also incorporate it?
Small steps. I like to make it so that by the end of the program, they feel like they've done nothing. They feel like they've been doing this the whole time. There was never a point in the process that was super hard that all of a sudden they went from not working out to working out 5 hours a week, or to never eating vegetables to all they eat is vegetables and now they're turning orange for so many carrots. I like to make it sneaky and easy. 10 minutes after you eat dinner, go for a walk or dance in the kitchen. Do something for 10 minutes. And then once you start that and that becomes consistent, then maybe we could build on that. Then maybe you want to try a yoga class or do something fun. Things that are fun and enjoyable are easier to implement and be consistent with. And things that feel more simple and easy, we eat 1 vegetable a day. That's where we start. And by the end, I do the fruit and vegetable challenge where I have them put 35 blanks on the refrigerator. And by the end of the week, they try 35 different fruits and vegetables that week. So if they eat a salad mix and they got in some arugula and some spinach and some cabbage, they can count all 3 of those things. When you make it fun and you make it simple and you make it easy, people can be consistent and they can get results.
It's so overwhelming when you think about going from really needing to make some changes to making all the changes. And so understanding that there's a path with many steps to get there, it makes it so much more bite-sized and accessible.
Yeah. And I think that's why 12 weeks, 3 months, people are, wow, why are you going to see me for 3 months? Well, we don't want to do it all in one visit because that's not going to work. We want to do it over time and we want it to be sustainable because we don't want to just put all this hard work in and then just stop when the program's done. We want to keep that momentum, keep moving forward.
Orgain offers a wide variety of great-tasting, diabetes-friendly nutrition products featuring impressive nutrition profiles with zero to minimal added sugar. Right now, my favorite is Orgain's 20 grams of protein plant-based chocolate shake. It tastes great, there's no added sugar, and it's convenient to grab on the go. Check it out for yourself at Orgain.com. You are an expert in testing and technology and just looking ahead and being futuristic. How does that weave into the personalized conversation?
I definitely use CGM in all my programs. Any person that can get a CGM, I like to use that. Another app that I like to use is built into my EHR, my electronic health record. My patients have the ability to photo food log. And I use photo food logging in a positive way. So number one, I'll have them do pictures of their food and they log it and they see it in their journal. They're the only ones that see it. I mean, I can see it, but nobody else. And they can rate their hunger level before they ate and after they ate. So what I like to do this is because it helps raise awareness. And then at the end of the week, I like to empower people and teach them, hey, when we look at a meal, these are the things that I'm looking for. So I like to make sure that there's a good source of protein at their meal. I like to make sure that some non-starchy vegetables were included, maybe some healthy fats, lots of bright colors. So when I comment on their food log, I point out the positive thing. I say, hey, I see you got a decent amount of fiber here and you're, fill in the blank. Oh, this was a great source of protein. You did awesome with your protein. I never go into their food log and say, oh, why'd you eat that? And you know what? None of us are perfect, but by taking time at the end of the week to say, okay, this looks good, but yeah, you know what? I did miss out on some of my protein this week, or I did miss out on some of my vegetables or whatever. Now that's something I have raised awareness about, and I can start working on that for the next week. So I think technology is helpful in that way because it helps with accountability and it helps you be consistent. If it's out of sight, it's out of mind. If you're not taking pictures of the food, you're not thinking about your food, then maybe you're not in a place where you're going to be making all those positive changes that you were hoping for. So we measure what we want to manage, right?
Some clients come to us and their doctors have prescribed them a certain type of diet, especially for like prediabetes or diabetes. I hear things like no carbs, right? Or you need to be ketogenic. That's how we get where we want to get. But then they come work with someone like you. I imagine you're telling them maybe we need to take a more balanced approach. How do you straddle that line with people?
I have had providers refer and say, this person needs no carbs. And so I'll talk to the patient and I'll be like, this is what your doctor prescribed. How do you feel about that? And they're like, okay, well, I've done no carbs in the past and I was successful. I lost quite a bit of weight, but I stopped doing it eventually. I'm like, okay, so we could just keep repeating that, like no carbs, or we could see if we could come up with a more sustainable plan. And I look at it like dietitians are providers as well. Like we bill insurance for our visits. Quite often we can see clients without referrals. So I usually will send a letter back to the physician and say, hey, the patient stated that they tried this. To individualize things a little bit more, here is what I'm recommending. And I'll send a note, send the plan, and just kind of communicate back with them. And then it's up to them from there. They can either say, well, you didn't do keto, I'm not giving you any more patients. And that's okay, because it's like, I want to do what's best for the patient. And I know they do too. Like I know that provider in their head is thinking, gosh, if they could just lose the weight and I think this is the best way to do it, their problems will be resolved. But in my experience as a dietitian, that's not how it works. Like some people, yeah, they've committed to keto, their lifelong keto. And I hate I keep bringing up keto. It's just what's so popular at the moment. And if they can live that way and they're getting great results and you feel good, great. That's what you should be doing then. But if you didn't feel good and you were feeling deprived and you were feeling restricted and couldn't participate in things because you had such limitations on your food, then that's probably not the most sustainable choice for that particular person.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I also don't want to be negative towards keto because I actually have a couple folks who feel absolutely great and it's super important to them. And the work that we do together is like, awesome. How do we make sure that you're meeting all your nutrient needs and that this is long-term? So it can work. I love my doctors. When I send that letter, they're like, oh yeah, great, gold star, do your thing, because they know that that's our specialty. But when your patients are meeting with their medical team, what kind of conversations do you suggest they have about menopause, about testing? Like, how do you empower your patients?
Yeah. So usually what I'll do is I have a handout that I'll give them that talks about like, these are some symptoms if your estrogen is low. These are some symptoms if progesterone is low, just so that they kind of had some ideas. And I recommend that, hey, if you've got certain things going on, you may want to talk to your doctor to figure out what is the best treatment for you. Maybe some changes with food and lifestyle you're going to start with. And that's where I tend to help. If they want to do some supplements, I can definitely help with that. But if they want to do hormone replacement therapy, I usually recommend a book by Laura Breeden. She writes books for women all about hormones. She has one that's just about like periods in general. And then she has one about hormones and perimenopause. And I know there's a ton of experts out there, but I just think she explains it so straightforward and easy. And what I like about her book is that she gives you the background and then she says, this is what you should say when you want to have a conversation about it with your doctor. So because I don't feel like I'm the expert on hormones, I'm the expert on managing what's going on with the body related to the hormones, I usually recommend they take a look at that book and then they can say, oh, this is what the conversation I need to have. That way they go in with a good base knowledge of what hormone replacement therapy is, or maybe I don't need this or I don't want this and I want to do this instead. And then they can have a knowledgeable conversation with their provider about it.
I hear a lot about sugar cravings, and I have so many strategies with how I help clients, but I want to hear from the hormonal lens, the diabetes lens. How do you help people manage sugar cravings?
So one thing that always pops up when it's hormones and blood sugar is magnesium. So I'm always promoting green leafy vegetables, nuts and seeds, because these are all foods that are high in magnesium. And because most people are deficient, and let's think about why we get deficient in magnesium. Blood sugar high causes magnesium deficiency. Stress causes magnesium deficiency. Many prescription medications that people with metabolic dysfunction are on cause magnesium deficiency. Estrogen dropping can cause magnesium. It's like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? So we want to eat lots of green leafies, nuts and seeds. And then I'll usually have people take about 300 milligrams of magnesium glycinate daily because it really does help with insulin resistance and it helps with sugar cravings. So that's one really important thing that I think lines up with the hormones as well as blood sugar control. Increasing people's protein a little bit and fiber content, vegetables, because, sugar begets sugar. The more we eat, the more we want. So when we can start bumping up the quality and using our insulin wisely, people automatically start noticing, I feel less stressed. I feel like I'm eating healthier. I've got my magnesium on board. Like all of these things start falling into place and the sugar cravings start to go away on their own. It's not like we were all born with like cravings for sugar. There's a reason why. And there's a lot we can do. So really focusing on hydration, focusing on protein and vegetables at each meal, and then making sure we're getting our green leafies in and our nuts and seeds.
Well, your book, Outsmart Your Diabetes, is a really great resource for anybody that is struggling with blood sugar, knows someone that's struggling with blood sugar, or is going through hormonal changes that could affect blood sugar. Those are the people that come to mind for me. Who did you write it for specifically?
I wrote it for people that want to just reverse diabetes, but I wanted to something out there that balanced like the clinical and the health stuff with how to implement this into their life. So I really wanted people to walk away from this having a better understanding of diabetes, but also like when their doctor says do this, like why is their doctor saying? Like, why are you taking the medicines that you're taking? Can you come off of those medicines? How to make decisions about what to eat. And so that's what it was for, is for people who feel motivated to get off some medications. Maybe they don't want to take 5 medications at a time, or they don't want to spend $900 a month on co-pays for medications. That's who I wrote it for, is people who want to feel motivated.
It's really approachable. It's relatable. And the thing that I really enjoy about you is your passion and enthusiasm and empowerment. So let me put that in the show notes for sure so people can grab it and use it as a resource because I hear loud and clear that you feel very strongly people can reverse their diabetes. I hear from a lot of my clients that is a huge goal of theirs. So this is an incredible resource for anyone that speaks to just say, yeah, I've got a partner in how to do that now.
And I just put out my workbook. So it's a 90-day lower your blood sugar challenge. And it's a daily thing. Like it tells you each day in the morning, this is what you want to look at to start your day. It gives a motivational tip or educational quote or something for the day. And then there's a check-in for the end of the day to kind of look back and how did this day go? Did it go as I had planned? And then I always put at the bottom, there's a little place to do what I'm grateful or what I'm thankful for today and what I learned. That helps people take what they learned in the book and put it into practice and actually get results with lowering their A1C.
Thank you for sharing these resources and all your secrets and your tips. This was empowering and exciting and just really fun.
Awesome. I enjoyed being here, Ginger. Appreciate it.
Our show is sponsored by Orgain and produced in collaboration with Large Media. That's LARJ Media. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Good Clean Nutrition Podcast. To stay up to date on the latest podcast episodes, be sure to hit follow on your podcast app. And if you like this podcast, I'd love for you to let us know. You can rate and review this show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or you can give us a thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching right now. I'm Ginger Hultin. You can find me online at gingerhultinnutrition.com. Thanks so much for listening.